comparative advantage, why international trade can promote growth. In order to understand the law of comparative advantage, let's compare the earning potential of two people, LBJ versus Andre Drummond, who is the nation's leading high school basketball player. Since that isn't a fair comparison, let's do another LBJ, LeBron James. Let's see how much LeBron James can earn in an hour and Andre Drummond, and how many lawns they can mow in an hour. LeBron James can earn $500,000 an hour doing commercial endorsements for Nike, or he could use that same hour to mow 2 lawns. Now, Andre does not have quite the same earning potential or lawn mowing capability. Andre can earn $50 an hour giving bike taxi rides on the Las Vegas Strip, and he can mow 1 lawn in 1 hour. So LeBron James can do both better, and Andre cannot do either as well as LeBron James. Since LeBron James can do both better, should he mow his own lawn? Sure, he's better at doing both, but the money is in the endorsements, and since LeBron is generous, he could pay Andre $100 to mow his own lawn. He then frees up 30 minutes of his time, which is valued at $250,000 for 30 minutes of Nike commercial endorsements. LeBron James is $249,900 up in the trade-off. And now Andre has earned $100 an hour. That's $50 an hour more than he could have earned by giving bike taxi rides in Las Vegas. So who do you think is going to specialize in mowing lawns? And who do you think is going to specialize in an hourly wage of endorsements or bike rides? The fact is that they are both wealthier by applying the law of comparative advantage. So just like it makes sense for LeBron James to have Andre mow his lawn, even though LeBron James is more efficient at mowing lawns, it makes sense for nations to specialize in production, even though one nation may be more efficient and productive at producing both goods in comparison to another country. Possibilities tables for South Korea, starting with radios and chemicals. If they were to produce all radios and no chemicals, South Korea could produce 30 radios. Hypothetical example. At the other end of the spectrum, if South Korea were to produce 0 radios, they could produce 30 chemicals. Now let's compare that with the United States. The United States production possibilities curve of radios and chemicals is such that if the United States produced 10 radios, then it could produce 0 chemicals using all of its resources. On the other end of the spectrum, if the United States did produce 0 radios, then it could produce 20 chemicals. So are the comparative cost conditions such that the two areas should specialize? If so, what product should each country produce? What country specializes in what? Countries should specialize if they have a comparative advantage in producing a product. In other words, countries should specialize in production of the product in which they are the low opportunity cost producer. Here's how to set up how to evaluate which country is the low cost producer. First, make a 4-quadrant matrix that shows the maximum a country can produce. For Korea, that would be 30 radios and 30 chemicals. What that means is that if Korea produces 30 radios, it will produce 0 chemicals. And if Korea produces 30 chemicals, it would produce 0 radios. Now let's figure out the maximum the U.S. can produce. If it produces 10 radios, it will produce 0 chemicals. And if it produces 20 chemicals, it will produce 0 radios. Put that all together and it looks like this. Just like LeBron James was more efficient in both activities, Korea has the absolute advantage in producing both products. And so should the U.S. and Korea specialize in a particular product and then trade? Or should each country just produce for itself? What country will specialize in producing radios? Now we will use a formula I call the sacrifice to gain formula. You've got to give up something to get something. You've got to sacrifice to gain. That is a layman's definition of an opportunity cost. What is the opportunity cost to produce one radio in the United States? Well, take 20 chemicals, because that is what you're sacrificing to produce radios, and divide that by 10 radios. 20 divided by 10 is equal to 2. In other words, producing one radio in the United States requires that you give up or sacrifice the production of 2 chemicals. So the opportunity cost of one radio is 2 chemicals. What is the opportunity cost to produce one radio in Korea? Take 30 chemicals, because you are sacrificing 30 chemicals to gain the radios, and you're producing 30 radios. 30 divided by 30 is equal to 1. In other words, producing one radio in Korea requires that you give up or sacrifice the production of one chemical. So the opportunity cost of one radio is 1 chemical. Which country has the lowest opportunity cost in the production of radios? Korea. Why? Because one radio costs only 1 chemical. In the United States, the cost to produce one radio is 2 chemicals. In other words, it is cheaper or a more efficient use of resources to produce radios in Korea because they are the low opportunity cost producer. What country will specialize in chemicals? What is the opportunity cost to produce one chemical in the United States? You're going to sacrifice 10 radios to produce 20 chemicals. So 10 divided by 20 is equal to 1/2. In other words, producing one chemical in the U.S. requires that you give up or sacrifice the production of 1/2 of a radio. The opportunity cost of one chemical in the United States is 1/2 a radio. What is the opportunity cost to produce one chemical in Korea? Well, you're going to sacrifice the production of 30 radios to gain the production of 30 chemicals. 30 divided by 30 is equal to 1. In other words, producing one chemical in Korea requires that you give up or sacrifice the production of one radio. The opportunity cost of one chemical is 1 radio. And which country has the lowest opportunity cost in production of chemicals? The U.S. Why? Because one chemical only costs 1/2 a radio. In Korea, the cost to produce one chemical is 1 radio. In other words, it is cheaper or a more efficient use of resources to produce chemicals in the United States, because the United States is the lowest opportunity cost producer of chemicals. So assume that before specialization and trade, the optimal product mix for South Korea is alternative B, and for the United States, it is alternative U. That means that South Korea is producing as a country alone by itself at alternative B, and the United States is producing as a country alone by itself at production U. So let's add together South Korea's production of radios and the United States' production of radios. Before specialization, worldwide, South Korea and the United States produced 28 radios. If we add together the pre-specialization production of chemicals, Korea had 6, the United States had 12, there were 18 chemicals produced worldwide. After specialization, there were 30 radios produced by South Korea and 20 radios produced by the United States. Therefore, worldwide production of radios increased by 2, from 28 to 30, and worldwide production of chemicals increased by 2, from 18 to 20. Has the world gained in production? Yes, it has. Now the nations can trade between themselves, and each nation is richer.